The sound cut through the elegant restaurant like a siren, relentless and raw. Every head turned toward the corner booth where a little girl sat screaming, her face red and wet with tears. Her father sat frozen beside her, his jaw tight, his expensive suit somehow making him look more helpless. He tried everything. Toy. A tablet. Soft words. Nothing worked. The child's grief poured out in waves that made the other diners shift uncomfortably in their seats. Grace Mitchell balanced 3 plates on her left arm and 2 on her right, but even she couldn't ignore the sound. It had been going on for 20 minutes now. The manager kept glancing over, clearly torn between asking the man to leave and being too afraid to approach him. Grace knew who he was. Everyone in New York knew Gabriel Russo. His face appeared in business magazines and news articles. He owned half the buildings in Manhattan. People whispered that he was ruthless, cold, unstoppable. But right now, watching him try to comfort his daughter, Grace saw something else entirely. She saw a man drowning. Grace set down her plates at table 7 and wiped her hands on her apron. Her feet ached from working a double shift. She had been at her other job, cleaning offices, until 3 in the morning. Then she had shown up here at Milano's at 10 for the lunch rush. Her body screamed for rest, but her heart pulled her toward that corner booth. She had worked with children before, back when she volunteered at the community center. She recognized this kind of crying. This wasn't a tantrum. This was grief. "Grace, don't," whispered her coworker Jennifer as she passed. "That's Gabriel Russo. He'll have you fired if you bother him." Grace glanced at her manager, Tom, who stood near the kitchen door wringing his hands. He caught her eye and shook his head slightly. The message was clear. Stay away. But Grace had never been good at following rules when someone needed help. She walked toward the booth, her heart pounding. As she got closer, she could see the little girl more clearly. She had dark curls and wore a blue dress with white flowers. Her small hands clutched a stuffed rabbit that had seen better days. The father, Gabriel, looked up as Grace approached. His eyes were gray and exhausted. Up close, she could see the lines of stress around his mouth, the shadow of stubble on his jaw. "Sir," Grace said quietly, "I'm sorry to interrupt." "Then don't," he replied. His voice was rough, strained. Grace should have walked away. But she looked at the little girl and saw something that made her stay. The child wasn't looking at her father. She was staring past him at nothing, lost in whatever pain had swallowed her whole. "What's her name?" Grace asked. Gabriel's jaw tightened. "Sophia." "How old is she?" 3. "And I don't need." "Sophia," Grace said gently, crouching down beside the booth so she was at the child's eye level. "Hi, sweetheart." The little girl's crying didn't stop, but her eyes shifted slightly toward Grace. "I know you're sad," Grace continued, her voice soft and steady. "I know it hurts so much. It's okay to cry." Sophia's sobs hitched just a little. "You miss your mama, don't you?" Grace said. The restaurant seemed to go quiet. Gabriel's face went pale. Sophia's crying changed, became softer, more broken. "It's okay to miss her," Grace whispered. "She loved you so much. And she would want you to know that it's okay to be sad. But she would also want you to know that you're not alone. Your daddy is right here and he loves you more than anything in the whole world." Sophia's small body shook, but the screaming stopped. She looked at Grace with enormous brown eyes filled with tears. "Can I sit with you for a minute?" Grace asked. Sophia didn't answer, but she didn't say no either. Grace looked up at Gabriel, silently asking permission. He stared at her for a long moment, then gave a slight nod. Grace slid into the booth beside Sophia. She didn't touch the child, just sat there, present and calm. "My mama went away when I was little too," Grace said quietly. "I didn't understand where she went. And it made me so angry and so sad. I cried a lot, just like you." Sophia's breathing slowed. She clutched her rabbit tighter. "But you know what I learned?" Grace continued. "I learned that the people who love us never really leave. They stay in our hearts. And when we remember them, it's like they're right there with us." Sophia turned her head slightly, looking at Grace more directly now. "Your mama is in your heart," Grace said, placing a gentle hand on her own chest. "Right here. Always." A tear rolled down Sophia's cheek, but she wasn't screaming anymore. She reached out one small hand and touched Grace's arm. The gesture was so simple, so trusting, that Grace felt her own eyes sting with tears. "That's right, baby," Grace whispered. "You're okay." Gabriel sat perfectly still, watching the stranger work a miracle he couldn't manage himself. His daughter, who had been inconsolable for weeks, was finally calming down. When Sophia leaned against Grace's side, something inside him cracked open. "She just needs a mom," Grace said softly, looking up at Gabriel. Not to replace the one she lost. But she needs that kind of love. That kind of comfort. Children this age don't understand death. They just know someone is missing. And they need to feel safe again. Gabriel's throat worked as he swallowed hard. I don't know how to give her that. You're her father, Grace said. You give her everything. But maybe she needs a little extra help right now. Sophia's crying had stopped completely. She sat curled against Grace, sucking her thumb, her eyes heavy with exhaustion. Grace stroked her hair gently, instinctively. I don't even know your name, Gabriel said. Grace Mitchell. How did you do that? I just listened to what she was telling me. And I told her the truth. That it's okay to be sad. That she's loved. That's all any of us really need to hear. Gabriel looked at his daughter, then back at Grace. An idea was forming in his mind, something crazy and desperate and necessary. Do you have children of your own? He asked. No. I'm not married. I don't even have a boyfriend. I work 2 jobs and barely keep my apartment. Grace said it matter-of-factly without shame. What's your other job? I clean offices at night. Gabriel studied her. She looked tired, but there was a strength in her face that money couldn't buy. She had walked into a situation that terrified him and handled it with grace that matched her name. How much do you make in a week? He asked. Grace blinked. That's kind of personal. Answer the question. Between both jobs, about $600. Gabriel pulled out his phone and typed something quickly. Then he looked at her again. I'll pay you $5,000 a week to take care of Sophia. Grace's mouth fell open. What? Be her nanny. Live in my home. Take care of her. Help her heal. Sir, Gabriel. My name is Gabriel. Gabriel, I'm just a waitress. I'm not a professional nanny. I don't have any special training. You have something better. You have whatever it was that just stopped my daughter from crying for the first time in 3 weeks. I'll pay for any training you need. You'll have your own room, full benefits, anything you want. Just say yes. Grace looked down at Sophia, who had fallen asleep against her shoulder. The child's face was finally peaceful. Grace thought about her tiny apartment with the broken heater. She thought about her aching feet and her empty refrigerator. She thought about how she had always wanted to help people, to make a difference. This wasn't how she had imagined it happening, but life rarely went according to plan. When would I start? She asked. Tomorrow. Grace took a deep breath. Okay. Yes. I'll do it. Gabriel's shoulders sagged with relief. He reached across the table and shook her hand. His grip was firm, warm. Thank you, he said, and his voice cracked slightly on the words. Could you walk past a crying child without trying to help? What would you have done in Grace's position? Leave a comment below and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a story like this. Grace spent the rest of her shift in a daze. Gabriel gave her his business card and told her to come to his building at 9 the next morning. He carried Sophia out of the restaurant, the little girl still sleeping in his arms. Other diners stared, whispered. Grace ignored them. She finished her tables, collected her tips, and told Tom she was quitting. He tried to convince her to stay, but she just smiled and shook her head. This was happening. Her whole life was about to change. That night, in her cramped apartment, Grace packed her few belongings into 2 suitcases. She didn't own much. Some clothes. A few books. The photograph of the foster mother who had been kind to her for 2 years before the state moved her again. Grace held the photo for a moment, remembering Mrs. Patterson's words. You've got a gift with children, Grace. Don't waste it. Grace hadn't known what that meant at the time. Maybe this was it. She barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Sophia's face, heard her cries. She thought about Gabriel's desperate eyes. She wondered what his home would be like, what his life was like. Rich people lived differently. She had cleaned their offices, seen their expensive furniture and art, but she had never actually lived among them. The thought scared her a little. But the thought of helping Sophia scared her less than the thought of saying no. At 8:30 the next morning, Grace stood outside Russo Tower in Midtown Manhattan. The building stretched up into the gray sky, all glass and steel. She wore her best outfit, a green dress she had bought at a thrift store and a coat that had belonged to her foster mother. She carried her 2 suitcases and tried not to look as nervous as she felt. The doorman, an older black man with kind eyes, smiled at her. You must be Grace Mitchell. Mr. Russo told me to expect you. Welcome. Thank you, Grace said, grateful for his warmth. He led her to a private elevator and used a key to activate it. This goes straight to the penthouse. Top floor. Mr. Russo is waiting for you. The elevator ride felt endless. Grace watched the numbers climb. 30 floors. 40. 50. Finally, the doors opened directly into an apartment that took her breath away. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Central Park. The furniture was modern and expensive. Art hung on the walls. But what struck Grace most was how cold it felt. Beautiful but empty. Gabriel appeared from a hallway, wearing dark slacks and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up. He looked different without the suit jacket. Younger. More human. Grace. Thank you for coming. Of course. He took her suitcases. Let me show you to your room. He led her down a hallway past several doors. Her room was bigger than her entire apartment had been. It had a queen-sized bed, a private bathroom, and its own sitting area with a couch and television. This is too much, Grace said. It's yours. Make yourself comfortable. Sophia is still sleeping but she'll be up soon. I need to go to the office for a few hours. My housekeeper, Mrs. Chen, will be here if you need anything. She usually comes in around 10. Wait, Grace said. You're leaving me alone with Sophia? Already? You're her nanny now. And she trusts you. Yesterday proved that. Gabriel hesitated, then added, I trust you too. I don't trust easily, but I watched you with my daughter. I know you'll take care of her. He left before Grace could respond. She stood in the middle of her new room, feeling overwhelmed. Then she heard it. A small cry from down the hall. Sophia was awake. Grace followed the sound to a bedroom decorated in soft pinks and whites. Sophia sat up in her bed, clutching her rabbit, tears already forming in her eyes. Hey, sweetheart, Grace said softly from the doorway. Remember me? I'm Grace. Sophia stared at her, recognition dawning in her eyes. Your daddy had to go to work, but he'll be back soon. How about you and me have some breakfast? Sophia didn't answer, but she climbed out of bed and walked over to Grace, reaching up her arms. Grace's heart melted. She picked up the little girl and held her close. It's going to be okay, Grace whispered. We're going to be okay. The first week passed in a blur of new routines and small victories. Grace learned that Sophia liked pancakes shaped like animals and hated having her hair brushed. She learned that the little girl slept with 3 stuffed animals, always arranged in the same order, and that she had nightmares almost every night. Grace would hear her crying and would rush to her room, holding her until she calmed down. Sometimes it took 5 minutes. Sometimes it took an hour. Grace never complained. Mrs. Chen, the housekeeper, turned out to be a woman in her 60s with gray hair and a no-nonsense attitude. At first, she watched Grace with suspicion, as if expecting her to fail. But by the 3rd day, when she found Grace on the floor playing blocks with Sophia, both of them laughing, her expression softened. You're good for her, Mrs. Chen said. I haven't heard her laugh like that since before Mrs. Russo passed. Tell me about her, Grace said later, when Sophia was napping. About Isabel. Mrs. Chen poured them both tea and sat at the kitchen table. She was beautiful. Elegant. She came from old money, one of those families that has been rich for generations. But she wasn't snobbish. She was kind. She loved Mr. Russo fiercely, and when Sophia was born, that girl became her whole world. What happened to her? Car accident. 6 months ago. She was driving home from a charity event. A drunk driver crossed the center line. Mrs. Chen's eyes filled with tears. Mr. Russo hasn't been the same since. He works all the time now. I think it's easier for him than being here, surrounded by memories. Grace understood. Grief made people do strange things. She had seen it in foster homes, in the children who acted out or withdrew completely. Gabriel was no different. He just hid his pain behind expensive suits and board meetings. Gabriel came home late every night. He would look in on Sophia, who was always asleep by then, and then disappear into his study. Sometimes Grace would see light under his door at 2 in the morning. She wanted to knock to tell him he needed rest, but she didn't dare. He was her employer, not her friend. But things began to shift during the 2nd week. Grace established a routine with Sophia. They woke up at 7, had breakfast, and then spent the morning playing or reading. After lunch and a nap, they would go to the park if the weather was nice. Grace taught Sophia new words, simple songs, how to count to 20. The little girl was smart and soaked up everything like a sponge. One afternoon they were in the park, feeding ducks by the pond, when Sophia suddenly said, Mama liked ducks. Grace's heart clenched. Did she? Sophia nodded. We came here. Me and Mama. We gave them bread. That's a beautiful memory, Grace said gently. You can tell me about your Mama anytime you want. I would love to hear about her. Sophia looked up at her with those big brown eyes. She had yellow hair. And she smelled like flowers. She sounds wonderful. She's in heaven now. Daddy said. That's right. Are you going to heaven too? The question hit Grace like a punch. Not for a very long time, sweetheart. I'm going to stay right here with you. Promise? Grace pulled Sophia into a hug. I promise. That evening, Gabriel came home at 6 instead of 10. Grace was in the kitchen helping Mrs. Chin prepare dinner. Sophia was at the table coloring a picture of ducks. Daddy! Sophia shrieked, running to him. Gabriel caught her, lifting her up. His face transformed when he smiled at his daughter. All the hardness melted away, leaving only love. What did you do today, princess? We fed the ducks. Grace says I can tell her about Mama anytime I want. Gabriel's eyes found Grace over Sophia's head. Something passed between them, understanding and gratitude. That's right, he said. Mama would like that. He set Sophia down and walked over to where Grace stood by the counter. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For not making her forget. Some people think children should just move on. But Isabel was her mother. She deserves to be remembered. Of course she does. Gabriel studied her face for a moment as if trying to figure her out. Stay for dinner. Please. I'd like to hear about your week. It wasn't a request. It wasn't quite a command either. It was something in between, and Grace found herself nodding. They ate together at the dining table, something Gabriel admitted he hadn't done since Isabel died. Sophia chattered about her day, showing her father the duck picture. Gabriel listened with complete attention, asking questions, praising her artwork. Grace watched him and saw the man behind the CEO. The father who loved his daughter more than anything. After Sophia went to bed, Gabriel asked Grace to join him in the living room. She sat on the couch while he poured himself a drink and stood by the window, looking out at the city lights. I need to know more about you, he said. I hired you on instinct, which isn't like me. But if you're going to be part of Sophia's life, I should know your story. Grace had expected this. What do you want to know? Everything. Start from the beginning. So she told him. About being born to a teenage mother who couldn't care for her. About the foster system that had been her only family. About kind homes and cruel ones, about moving every year or two, never staying long enough to put down roots. About aging out of the system at 18 with no money and no support. About working her way through community college while waiting tables. About dropping out when she couldn't afford tuition. About the years of just surviving one day at a time. Gabriel listened without interrupting. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. You could have become bitter, he said finally. Most people would have. I thought about it. But bitterness doesn't change anything. It just makes you smaller. How did you learn to be so wise? Grace laughed softly. I'm not wise. I just know what it feels like to hurt. And I don't want anyone else to feel that way if I can help it. Especially not a 3-year-old girl who just lost her mother. Gabriel set down his glass and came to sit beside her on the couch. Not too close, but close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle. Isabel would have liked you, he said. She believed in kindness above everything else. She used to say that in a world this hard, choosing to be kind was the bravest thing you could do. She sounds like she was an incredible person. She was. Gabriel's voice roughened. And I don't know how to live without her. I throw myself into work because at least there I know what I'm doing. But when I'm here in this apartment, I see her everywhere. I hear her voice. And it kills me that Sophia is growing up without her. Sophia isn't growing up without love, Grace said firmly. You love her. That's what matters. Is it enough? Love is always enough. Everything else we figure out as we go. Gabriel looked at her, really looked at her, and Grace felt something shift in the air between them. It wasn't attraction, not yet. It was recognition. Two people who had both known loss, both learned to survive, both understood that life didn't give you what you wanted but you kept going anyway. I'm glad you're here, Grace, he said. So am I. 3 weeks in, and Grace felt like she had always lived in the penthouse. Sophia was a different child now. She still had sad moments, still cried for her mother sometimes, but the inconsolable grief had eased. She laughed more. She played more. She was starting to heal. Grace established a routine that gave Sophia stability. Every morning they made breakfast together. Sophia stood on a stool and helped crack eggs or pour milk. They read 3 stories before nap time, always the same 3 because Sophia liked the repetition. In the afternoons they did art projects or went to the park. Grace took her to the library and got her a library card, which Sophia treated like treasure. They checked out stacks of picture books and read them curled up on the couch. Mrs. Chin warmed to Grace completely. The two women worked together easily, taking care of the house and Sophia. Mrs. Chin taught Grace how to cook Gabriel's favorite meals, though Grace insisted she was just a simple cook. "Nothing fancy," Grace would say. "I can make spaghetti and chicken and that's about it." "That's all a family needs," Mrs. Chin replied. "Good food made with love." Mrs. Russo used to say the same thing. Gabriel still worked long hours, but he started coming home earlier when he could. One Thursday he arrived at 5 in the afternoon, surprising them all. Grace and Sophia were in the kitchen making cookies. Sophia's face and apron were covered in flour, and she was giggling as Grace pretended the cookie dough was trying to escape. Gabriel stood in the doorway just watching. Grace didn't notice him at first. She was too focused on Sophia, on making the little girl laugh. When she finally looked up and saw him, she startled. "You're home early. I wanted to see Sophia before bedtime for once." He walked over and kissed the top of his daughter's head. "What are we making?" "Chocolate chip cookies," Sophia announced proudly. "Grace says we can't eat the dough because we'll get tummy aches, but I already ate some and I feel fine." Gabriel raised an eyebrow at Grace, who shrugged sheepishly. "One small bite won't hurt," she said. "Daddy, do you want to help?" Sophia asked. Gabriel looked at his expensive suit and dress shoes, clearly calculating the mess. Then he looked at his daughter's hopeful face and smiled. "Sure, princess. Let me change first." He returned 5 minutes later in jeans and a blue t-shirt. Grace tried not to stare. She had only ever seen him in suits. He looked younger like this, more relaxed. He rolled up his sleeves and washed his hands, then joined them at the counter. Sophia ordered him around like a tiny general. "Daddy, you stir. Grace, you measure. I'll add the chocolate chips." They worked together, and Grace watched Gabriel's face soften as he focused on this simple task. When Sophia spilled flour all over the floor, he just laughed and helped her clean it up. When the first batch came out of the oven, they all sampled the warm cookies and Gabriel declared them the best he had ever tasted. "Really?" Grace asked skeptically. "Really? Although maybe I'm biased because I helped make them." After Sophia went to bed, Gabriel asked Grace to stay up for a while. They sat in the living room with coffee, the comfortable silence of people growing used to each other. "She's doing so much better," Gabriel said. "I can't thank you enough." "You don't have to keep thanking me. This is my job. And honestly, it doesn't even feel like a job. Sophia is easy to love. Still, you've given her something I couldn't. You've given her joy again." Grace stirred her coffee, thinking about how to say what she wanted to say. "Can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why do you work so much? I mean, I understand you have a company to run. But Sophia needs you too." Gabriel's jaw tightened. For a moment, Grace worried she had overstepped. Then he sighed and leaned back against the couch. "Because when I'm working, I don't think about Isabel. I don't think about how I lost her. How it should have been me in that car, not her. She was coming home from an event for my company. If I hadn't asked her to go, she would still be alive." "You can't think like that," Grace said gently. "You can't blame yourself for an accident." "Can't I? I do every day. And being in this apartment where we live together, where she decorated every room, where I can still smell her perfume sometimes, it's too hard. At the office I can pretend. I can be the person everyone expects me to be. Strong. In control. But you're not," Grace said. "And that's okay. You don't have to be strong all the time. You lost your wife. You're allowed to grieve." Gabriel's eyes met hers, and she saw the pain he tried so hard to hide. "How do you do it?" he asked. "How do you stay so positive after everything you've been through?" "I don't always. Some days are hard. Some days I wonder why I keep trying. But then I think about the alternative. Giving up. Letting the hard things win. And I decide that's not who I want to be. I want to be someone who keeps going. Someone who helps other people keep going too." "You're remarkable." "I'm really not. I'm just stubborn." Gabriel laughed and the sound surprised them both. Maybe that's the same thing. They talked for another hour about everything and nothing. Grace told him about her favorite books. He told her about growing up in his family, about the pressure to succeed, about his father who had built the company from nothing and expected Gabriel to do even better. They talked about Sophia, about her first words and first steps, stories Isabel had told Gabriel that he now shared with Grace. When Grace finally went to her room, she felt lighter somehow. Like a weight had been lifted. She was starting to understand Gabriel, starting to see past the cold exterior to the hurting man underneath. And she suspected he was starting to understand her too. The next week, Gabriel came home at 6 every night. He joined them for dinner and helped put Sophia to bed. He read her stories and sang her songs, his deep voice surprisingly gentle. One night, after Sophia was asleep, he and Grace stood in the hallway outside her room. "I forgot how much I love this," Gabriel said quietly. "Being a father. Not just someone who pays the bills but actually being here. She loves having you here. So do I." He looked at Grace and something in his expression made her breath catch. "Thank you for reminding me what matters." He reached out and squeezed her hand just for a second and then he walked away to his study. Grace stood there, her hand tingling from his touch, and realized something terrifying. She was starting to care about Gabriel Russo. Not as an employer. As a man. And that was dangerous for so many reasons she couldn't even count them all. Gabriel had to fly to Chicago for a business conference, 3 days of meetings with potential investors. He had done these trips dozens of times before, always alone. But when he mentioned it to Sophia during breakfast, she burst into tears. "You can't go," she sobbed. "You just started coming home. You can't leave me again." Gabriel looked helplessly at Grace, who knelt beside Sophia's chair. "Your daddy has to work sometimes, sweetheart. But he'll be back in just 3 days. That's not very long." "Yes it is," Sophia wailed. "It's forever." Gabriel's phone rang. He glanced at it and grimaced. "I have to take this. It's about the presentation." He stepped out of the room, leaving Grace to comfort his daughter. Grace held Sophia while she cried, rubbing her back and making soothing sounds. When Gabriel returned, Sophia had calmed down but was still sniffling. "What if," Gabriel said slowly, "Grace and Sophia came with me?" Grace's head snapped up. "What?" "To Chicago. We could make it a trip. There's an amazing aquarium there. And I'd have the evenings free. We could explore the city together." "Daddy, yes," Sophia said, instantly brightening. "Please, Grace, please come." Grace looked between the hopeful faces of father and daughter. "I don't know. That's a big expense, flying us both out there." "Money isn't an issue," Gabriel said. "And honestly, I don't want to be away from Sophia either. These past few weeks being home more, it's reminded me what I was missing. So please, come with us." Grace felt her resistance crumbling. "Okay. Yes. Let's go to Chicago." Sophia cheered and threw her arms around Grace's neck. Gabriel's smile was warm and genuine. "Good. We leave tomorrow morning." They flew first class, which was a new experience for Grace. She tried not to gawk at the spacious seats and the flight attendants who brought them warm towels and actual meals instead of peanuts. Sophia sat between them, pressing her face against the window and exclaiming over the clouds. "We're flying," she kept saying. "We're actually flying like birds." The hotel was on Michigan Avenue, a beautiful historic building with marble floors and crystal chandeliers. Their suite had 3 bedrooms, a living room, and a view of Lake Michigan that made Grace catch her breath. Sophia ran from room to room, exploring everything while Gabriel checked his phone and responded to emails. "The meetings start in 2 hours, he told Grace. "There's a kids' club in the hotel if you want to." "We'll be fine," Grace said. "We'll explore the neighborhood. Maybe find a park." Gabriel hesitated. "Are you sure? I can hire a driver." "Gabriel, we can take a cab. Or walk. You forget that I'm used to taking care of myself." He smiled. "I'm starting to realize that." "Okay. I'll be done by 6. We can have dinner together." He left, and Grace got Sophia ready for their adventure. They took a cab to Millennium Park and spent the afternoon looking at the bean sculpture, making funny faces in its reflection. Sophia thought it was hilarious how it warped their features. They got hot chocolate from a vendor and walked along the lake, watching boats and seagulls. That evening, Gabriel took them to a restaurant that served deep dish pizza. Sophia made a mess trying to eat the thick slices and they all laughed. Gabriel looked more relaxed than Grace had ever seen him. Away from New York, away from his office and the memories in his apartment, he seemed lighter. The next day, while Gabriel was in meetings, Grace and Sophia went to the Shed Aquarium. Sophia was mesmerized by the fish, especially the beluga whales. They spent hours wandering through exhibits, and Sophia asked a million questions that Grace did her best to answer. In the gift shop, Grace bought her a stuffed dolphin, which Sophia immediately named Bubbles. That afternoon they walked along Navy Pier, rode the Ferris wheel and ate cotton candy. Sophia's joy was contagious. She held Grace's hand and chattered non-stop about everything she saw. People smiled at them as they passed, seeing a mother and daughter enjoying the day. Grace didn't correct them. Felt too good. Back at the hotel, Sophia was exhausted. Grace gave her a bath and tucked her into bed. The little girl was asleep within minutes, Bubbles the dolphin clutched in her arms. Grace was walking out of the bedroom when she heard Sophia's sleepy voice. Grace? Yes, honey? I love you. Grace's throat tightened. I love you too, sweetheart. You're my mama Grace now. Okay. Tears pricked Grace's eyes. Okay. She closed the door quietly and stood in the hallway overwhelmed. Mama Grace. The words filled her with a joy so fierce it scared her. This child, this beautiful little girl who had lost so much, was choosing to love her, trusting her. And Grace realized she would do anything to protect that trust. Gabriel came back an hour later looking tired but satisfied. The meetings went well. We should have the funding we need for the expansion. He glanced around. Where's Sophia? Asleep. She had a big day. They sat on the couch in the living room and Grace told him about the aquarium and Navy Pier. Gabriel listened with a smile. I should have been there, he said. I should have seen her face when she saw the whales. You'll see it next time. And she knows you're working to take care of her. She's proud of you. Is she? Of course. She talks about you all the time. My daddy builds buildings. My daddy is important. She thinks you're a superhero. Gabriel laughed softly. I'm far from that. To her you are. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. The hotel room was quiet except for the distant sound of traffic outside. Grace felt the strangeness of the situation. Here she was in Chicago sitting with a billionaire talking like they were old friends. A month ago she had been serving tables and cleaning offices. Life changed fast when you let it. Can I tell you something? Gabriel said. Of course. When Isabel died I thought my life was over. Not literally but in every way that mattered. I thought I would just go through the motions, work and take care of Sophia and that would be it. No happiness. No connection. Just survival. He turned to look at her. But these past few weeks, you've shown me that there can be more. That life doesn't end when you lose someone. It just changes. And maybe that's okay. Grace's heart pounded. I'm glad you're finding your way back. I couldn't have done it without you. He reached over and took her hand, lacing his fingers through hers. You've given me and Sophia a gift. Oh, I didn't think I'd feel that again. Grace squeezed his hand, unable to speak. They sat there, hands linked, and something unspoken passed between them. Something that felt like a promise. The next morning was Gabriel's last day of meetings. He left early and Grace and Sophia had a lazy breakfast in the hotel room, ordering room service and eating pancakes in their pajamas. Around noon Gabriel called. The last meeting ended early, he said. My flight isn't until 8. Want to do something together? They met him in the lobby and took a cab to Lincoln Park Zoo. It was a beautiful spring day, and the zoo was full of families. They walked hand in hand, all three of them, Gabriel on one side of Sophia and Grace on the other. They saw lions and monkeys and penguins. Sophia laughed and pointed and asked endless questions. Gabriel answered patiently, looking up facts on his phone when he didn't know the answers. At one point, Sophia ran ahead to look at the gorillas. Grace and Gabriel stood side by side watching her. This feels like a family, Gabriel said quietly. Grace's breath caught. It does. I never thought I'd have this again. This feeling. What feeling? Wholeness. He looked at her, and Grace saw something in his eyes that made her stomach flip. Longing. What? Connection. Grace, Mama Grace, Daddy, come look. Sophia shouted, waving at them. The moment broke. They walked over to their daughter, that's what Grace thought of her now, their daughter, and looked at the gorillas. But Grace could still feel the weight of whatever Gabriel had been about to say. That night, on the plane back to New York, Sophia fell asleep between them. Gabriel draped a blanket over her and then looked at Grace. Thank you for coming, he said. This trip would have been miserable without you. I had a wonderful time. So did I. He paused. Grace, I need to tell you something. Okay. I'm falling in love with you. The words hung in the air between them. Grace's heart raced. She should have been shocked, but she wasn't. Because she had been feeling the same thing, even though she had been too scared to admit it. Gabriel. You don't have to say anything. I know it's complicated. You work for me. We live in the same house. There are 1,000 reasons this is a bad idea. But I can't stop how I feel. And I don't want to. For the first time since Isabel died, I feel alive again. And it's because of you. Grace looked at Sophia, sleeping peacefully between them. She thought about the life she had built over the past month. The purpose she had found. The love that had grown in her heart for this little girl, and she could admit it now for her father too. I'm falling for you too, she whispered. And it scares me. Why? Because what if I mess this up? What if I'm not enough? Gabriel reached across Sophia and took Grace's hand. You're more than enough. You're everything. They didn't talk more that night. But they held hands over Sophia's sleeping form, and it felt like a promise. A beginning. Back in New York, life settled into a new rhythm. Gabriel came home every day by 6. They had dinner together as a family, all 3 of them around the table sharing stories about their days. After Sophia went to bed, Gabriel and Grace would talk for hours. Sometimes about serious things, sometimes about nothing at all. They learned each other's quirks and habits. Grace discovered that Gabriel liked his coffee black and strong, that he read business journals before bed, that he had a secret love for old movies. Gabriel learned that Grace was terrible at cooking anything complicated, that she talked to plants, that she cried at commercials if they featured dogs. They didn't talk about what Gabriel had said on the plane. They didn't need to. It was there between them in every look, every accidental touch, every shared smile. They were circling something, both of them aware of it, both a little afraid to name it out loud. Richard Chin, Gabriel's business partner, came to the apartment for a meeting one afternoon. He was a tall man with gray hair and sharp eyes. Grace served them coffee in the study and tried to leave, but Richard stopped her. You must be Grace. Gabriel has told me a lot about you. Good things, I hope. Very good things. He says you've worked a miracle with Sophia. I've just loved her. That's all. Richard smiled. That's more than most people could do. Thank you for taking care of them both. After Richard left, Gabriel found Grace in the kitchen. He likes you. Does it matter if he likes me? Richard is more than my business partner. He's my friend. And he hasn't seen me this happy in a long time. He wanted to meet the person responsible. I'm not responsible for your happiness, Grace said. You are. Maybe. But you made it possible. The following week, Gabriel's sister Catherine came to visit. She was younger than Gabriel by 3 years, with the same dark hair and sharp features. She swept into the apartment like a tornado, hugging Sophia and kissing Gabriel on both cheeks. When she saw Grace, she stopped. So you're the famous Grace. I don't know about famous. Catherine studied her. My brother talks about you constantly. Grace did this. Grace said that. Grace is amazing. I had to come see for myself. Catherine, Gabriel said warningly. What? I'm just being honest. Grace, welcome to the family. Anyone who can make my grumpy brother smile is a miracle worker. They had lunch together, the 4 of them. Catherine was funny and warm, asking Grace a million questions about her life and her work with Sophia. She didn't ask in a mean way, just curious. And when Sophia climbed into Grace's lap and called her Mama Grace, Catherine's eyes filled with tears. I'm so glad you found her, Catherine said to Gabriel later, when Grace was putting Sophia down for a nap. Isabel would have wanted this for you. For Sophia to have someone who loves her. For you to be happy again. I know, Gabriel said quietly. That evening after Catherine left, Gabriel asked Grace to walk with him. They bundled Sophia up and took her to Central Park. The little girl ran ahead, chasing pigeons and laughing. Gabriel and Grace walked slowly behind her. My sister really does like you, Gabriel said. I like her too. She said something before she left. She said that life is too short to waste time being afraid. Grace glanced at him. What are you afraid of? Losing someone else I love. Opening my heart and having it broken again. That's a fair fear. But it's not fair to you. Or to Sophia. Or even to myself. Because the truth is, Grace, I'm already in love with you. I have been for weeks. And I don't want to hide it anymore. Grace stopped walking. Sophia was several yards ahead, safe but out of earshot. Gabriel. I know this is complicated. I know I'm your employer and you might feel pressured. If you don't feel the same way, tell me. We'll go back to how things were. I promise nothing will change with your job or your place in Sophia's life. You don't understand, Grace said. I do feel the same way. That's the problem. I'm in love with you too. But what if we try this and it doesn't work? What happens to Sophia? She's already lost one mother. I can't let her lose another. Gabriel took her hands in his. Then we make sure it works. We don't give up. We fight for this, for us, because it's worth fighting for. How can you be so sure? Because you make me want to be better. Because when I'm with you, I remember what it feels like to be happy. Because Sophia loves you and I love you, and that's all that matters. Grace looked into his eyes and saw only honesty. No games. No hidden agenda. Just a man who had lost everything and was brave enough to try again. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Yes, let's try. Let's see where this goes. Gabriel's smile could have lit up the whole park. He pulled her close, right there in the middle of Central Park with people walking past and Sophia playing nearby. He cupped her face in his hands and kissed her, gentle and sweet and full of promise. When they pulled apart they were both smiling. "Daddy, Grace, look at me," Sophia called, spinning in circles. They walked over to her and Gabriel lifted her onto his shoulders. The three of them walked through the park as the sun set, painting the sky in shades of pink and orange. Grace felt a peace she had never known before. Like she was exactly where she was meant to be. That night, after Sophia was asleep, they sat together on the couch. Not just next to each other, but with Grace tucked against Gabriel's side, his arm around her shoulders. They didn't do anything more than hold each other, but it felt huge. Like they had crossed a line they couldn't uncross. And neither of them wanted to. "Tell me something," Gabriel said. "Tell me a dream you have. Something you've always wanted." Grace thought about it. "I want a family. I know that's simple. But growing up the way I did, moving from place to place, never having anyone who was really mine. I just want to belong somewhere. To people. You belong here. With us." "Do I?" "Yes. Completely." He kissed the top of her head and Grace closed her eyes, letting herself believe it might be true. The next few weeks were the happiest Grace had ever known. She and Gabriel were careful around Sophia, not wanting to confuse her. But when the little girl was asleep, they would sit together and talk and kiss and dream about the future. They talked about taking a real vacation, just the three of them. They talked about Gabriel cutting back his hours even more. They talked about what it would mean for Grace to be more than just the nanny. They didn't use the word marriage, not yet, but it hung in the air between them, full of possibility. One evening, Gabriel came home with a box tied with a ribbon. "For you," he said, handing it to Grace. She opened it carefully. Inside was a beautiful necklace, a delicate gold chain with a small diamond pendant. "Gabriel, this is too much. It's not nearly enough. But I wanted you to have something that showed how much you mean to me." She let him fasten it around her neck. The pendant settled just above her heart. When she looked in the mirror, she barely recognized herself. This woman with the pretty necklace and the smile, this woman who looked happy, was she really Grace Mitchell from the foster system? Was she really the girl who had cleaned offices for minimum wage? "What are you thinking?" Gabriel asked, coming up behind her. "That my life feels like a fairy tale. And I'm scared I'm going to wake up." He turned her to face him. "This is real. I'm real. What we have is real. And I'm not going anywhere." He kissed her, slow and deep, and Grace let herself believe him. Let herself hope. Because hope, she was learning, was not something to be afraid of. Hope was what carried you through. Hope was what made tomorrow possible. Gabriel had been planning this weekend for 2 weeks. He wanted it to be perfect, a chance for the three of them to get away from the city and just be together. His family owned an estate in the Hamptons, a beautiful property right on the ocean that had been in the Russo family for 3 generations. He hadn't been there since before Isabel died. But it was time. Time to make new memories instead of just living in the shadow of old ones. They drove out on a Friday afternoon, Sophia chattering excitedly in the back seat about seeing the ocean. Grace sat in the passenger seat, watching the scenery change from city to suburbs to beach towns. Gabriel kept glancing over at her, wanting to see her reaction when they pulled up to the house. It didn't disappoint. The estate sat on 5 acres overlooking the Atlantic. The house was a sprawling white structure with columns and terraces and huge windows that caught the sun. There was a pool, a tennis court, and a path that led directly down to a private beach. "This is your house?" Grace asked, her voice small. "My family's house. But yes. Do you like it?" "Gabriel, it's beautiful. It's like something from a magazine." Sophia was already unbuckled and running toward the beach path. "Can we go swimming? Please, please, please?" "Let's get settled first," Gabriel said. "Then we'll hit the beach." The inside of the house was just as impressive as the outside. Hardwood floors, high ceilings, furniture that looked both expensive and comfortable. The housekeeper, Mrs. Martinez, greeted them warmly. She had worked for the Russo family for decades and remembered Gabriel as a boy. "It's good to see you here again, Mr. Gabriel. And this must be little Sophia. My goodness, you look just like your mother." Sophia beamed at the compliment. Grace saw Gabriel's face tighten slightly at the mention of Isabel, but he recovered quickly. Mrs. Martinez showed Grace to her room, which had a view of the ocean and a bed so large it could have fit 4 people. "If you need anything at all, you just let me know." "Thank you. This is all very kind. Mr. Gabriel is a good man. After Mrs. Isabel passed, we worried about him. But I can see he's doing better now. That's because of you, I think." Grace didn't know what to say to that, so she just smiled. But Mrs. Martinez's words stayed with her. People could see it. The change in Gabriel. The happiness returning. They spent the afternoon on the beach. Sophia built sandcastles with her father while Grace walked along the shore, letting the waves wash over her feet. The ocean was cold but refreshing. The sound of it, the endless rush of water, was soothing. She could see why Gabriel's family had chosen this spot. It felt separate from the rest of the world. Peaceful. That evening they had dinner on the terrace. Mrs. Martinez had prepared fresh fish and vegetables, everything simple but perfect. They ate as the sun began to set, painting the sky in brilliant colors. Sophia kept yawning, worn out from the sun and sea air. "Someone needs to go to bed," Gabriel said, scooping her up. "Not tired," Sophia protested even as her eyes drooped. "How about Grace and I both tuck you in? Would that be okay?" Sophia nodded against his shoulder. They carried her upstairs together and got her into her pajamas. She was asleep before they even finished reading her story. "Out like a light," Grace whispered. They stood in the doorway of Sophia's room, watching her sleep. Gabriel put his arm around Grace's waist and she leaned into him. "Thank you for coming here with me," he said. "I wasn't sure I could do it. Come back to this place." "Why?" "Too many memories. Isabel and I spent every summer here when we were first married. And after Sophia was born, we'd come out on weekends. She loved it here. Being back without her." He trailed off. "But you're not without her," Grace said gently. "She's part of every room, every memory. And that's okay. You don't have to erase her to move forward. You just have to bring new people along." "Is that what you are? A new person?" "I hope I'm more than that by now." Gabriel turned her to face him. "You're everything. You're my second chance. Do you know that?" Grace's heart raced. "Gabriel, come with me. I want to show you something." He took her hand and led her downstairs, out the back door and down the path to the beach. The sun was fully set now, but the moon was bright, reflecting off the water. The sound of waves filled the air. Gabriel led her to where the sand was wet and firm, and they stood looking out at the ocean. "When I was a kid, I used to come down here and make wishes," Gabriel said. "My mom told me that if you wished on the first star in the ocean at the same time, it had to come true." "Did your wishes come true?" "Some of them. Not all. But standing here now with you, I feel like maybe the most important one did." "What did you wish for?" "That's the thing. I didn't wish for you specifically. I didn't know you existed. But I wished for hope. For a reason to keep going. For something good in my life again. And then you walked into that restaurant and stopped Sophia's crying and everything changed." Grace felt tears prick her eyes. "I feel the same way. Like my whole life led me to that moment. To you and Sophia." Gabriel cupped her face in his hands. "I love you, Grace Mitchell. I love you for who you are. For how you love my daughter. For how you make me want to be better. For 1,000 reasons I couldn't even list. But most of all, I love you because you're you. And that's enough." "I love you too," Grace whispered. "So much it scares me." "Don't be scared. Not of this." He kissed her then, under the moonlight, with the ocean as their witness. This kiss was different from the one in the park. That one had been sweet and hopeful. This one was deeper, full of promise and passion and commitment. Grace wrapped her arms around his neck and Gabriel pulled her close, and for those moments, nothing else existed but them. When they finally pulled apart, they were both breathing hard. Gabriel rested his forehead against hers. "Stay with me," he said. "Not just tonight. Not just this weekend. Stay with me and Sophia. Be part of our family. Not as an employee. As someone I love. As someone who belongs." "Are you sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." Grace thought about the life she had imagined for herself. Small and safe and alone. And then she thought about this life, the one unfolding before her. Big and scary and full of love. There was no contest. "Yes," she said. "I'll stay. For as long as you want me. Forever, then. That's how long I want you." They walked back to the house hand in hand. At the top of the stairs, Gabriel stopped. "Your room or mine?" Grace's heart pounded. "I think, maybe we should wait. Until we're sure. Until we've figured this out." "Are you saying you're not sure?" "I'm saying I want to do this right. For Sophia. For us. I don't want to rush." Gabriel nodded slowly. "You're right. As much as I want to be with you right now, you're right. We should take this slow." He kissed her again, gentle and sweet. "Good night, Grace." "Good night." She went to her room and lay in that enormous bed, staring at the ceiling. Her body was humming with want, but her mind knew she had made the right choice. They had time. They had the rest of their lives. The next day was perfect. They spent hours on the beach playing with Sophia, swimming in the waves, collecting shells. Gabriel taught Sophia how to skip stones, and she giggled every time one bounced across the water. They had a picnic lunch on the sand, sandwiches and fruit and cold lemonade. In the afternoon, while Sophia napped, Gabriel and Grace walked along the shore. "I've been thinking," Gabriel said. "About us. About what comes next." "What do you mean?" "I want to make this official. I want the world to know that you're more than Sophia's nanny. That you're my partner. The woman I love." "People might talk about how fast this happened." "Let them talk. I don't care what anyone thinks except you and Sophia." "When?" Grace asked. "Soon. When we get back to the city. I want to take you out properly. Fancy dinner. Show you off. Let everyone see how lucky I am." Grace laughed. "I don't have anything fancy to wear." "Then we'll buy you something." "Grace, I want to give you everything. Not just things but experiences. Travel. Adventure. A life you deserve. I don't need fancy things. I just need you and Sophia." "I know. That's why I love you." That evening, they sat on the terrace after Sophia went to bed. Gabriel had opened a bottle of wine, and they sipped it while watching the stars come out. Grace wore her necklace, the one Gabriel had given her, and it caught the light every time she moved. "I have something for you," Gabriel said. He pulled a small box from his pocket and Grace's breath caught. "Gabriel, it's not what you think. Not yet. But I want you to have this." He opened the box. Inside was a key on a silver chain. "It's to the apartment," he explained. "And to this house. And to anywhere else we go. I want you to know that you have a place. That you belong. That you're not just a guest in my life. You're home." Grace took the key, her hands shaking. "Thank you. Will you wear it?" She nodded, and he fastened the chain around her neck. The key settled next to the diamond pendant, two symbols of belonging. "I'm going to marry you someday," Gabriel said quietly. "When you're ready. When the time is right. But I need you to know that's where this is going. I'm not playing games. I'm not just having fun. I'm building a life with you." "I want that too," Grace said. "More than anything." They sat together until late, talking about their dreams. Gabriel wanted to take Sophia to Europe, show her all the places he had traveled for business. Grace wanted to finish her degree someday, maybe become a teacher. They talked about giving Sophia siblings, about growing old together, about all the ordinary and extraordinary days ahead of them. When they finally went inside, Gabriel walked Grace to her door. They kissed goodnight, long and slow, neither wanting to let go. "I love you," he whispered against her lips. "I love you too." Grace went to bed that night feeling like the luckiest person alive. She had gone from having nothing to having everything. A man who loved her. A child who needed her. A future that stretched out bright and full of possibility. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't afraid of losing it. She was just grateful to have it. If you're loving Grace and Gabriel's story, please subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss what happens next. This is where things get intense. They returned to New York on Sunday evening, all three of them sun-kissed and happy. Sophia fell asleep in the car on the way from the Hamptons, worn out from the weekend. Gabriel carried her up to the apartment while Grace brought their bags. The city felt different now, less overwhelming. It felt like home. Monday morning, Gabriel left early for the office. He had a meeting with potential investors, something he had been working on for months. Grace got Sophia ready for her preschool, a small, exclusive program that met 3 mornings a week. Sophia had started attending a month ago and she loved it. She talked constantly about her teacher, Miss Amber, and her friends, particularly a little boy named Jacob. Grace walked Sophia to the school, which was only 4 blocks from the apartment. It was a beautiful morning, spring finally arriving in full force. Trees were blooming and people seemed happier, lighter. Grace waited until Sophia was safely inside, then started walking back home. She had a whole day ahead of her to run errands, clean the apartment, maybe read for pleasure for the first time in weeks. She was halfway home when her phone rang. A known number. She almost didn't answer, but something made her pick up. "Hello? Is this Grace Mitchell?" A man's voice, smooth and cold. "Yes. Who is this?" "A friend. I wanted to congratulate you on your new position. Nanny to Gabriel Russo's daughter. That's quite an accomplishment for someone like you." Grace stopped walking. "Who is this?" "Like I said, a friend. I'm just calling to give you some advice. Be careful. Gabriel Russo has enemies. People who would love to see him hurt. And the easiest way to hurt a man like that is through the people he loves. His daughter. His girlfriend? Is that what you are?" Grace's blood ran cold. If you're threatening Sophia. I'm not threatening anyone. I'm just pointing out facts. A 3-year-old child is very vulnerable. Accidents happen. People get hurt. It would be terrible if something happened to sweet little Sophia. Or to you for that matter. You should think about that. Maybe reconsider your position in Gabriel's life. Who are you? Grace demanded. But the line was already dead. She stood on the sidewalk, her hands shaking. Was this real? Was someone actually threatening Sophia? Or was it just some sick prank? She wanted to believe it was nothing. But the man's voice had been too calm, too certain. This was real. She called Gabriel immediately. He was in his meeting, but when his assistant said it was Grace and that it was urgent, he took the call. What's wrong? Grace told him about the phone call, trying to keep her voice steady. Gabriel listened without interrupting, but she could hear his breathing change, hear the anger building. Where are you right now? Walking back from Sophia's school. Go straight home. Lock the door. Don't open it for anyone except me. I'm coming right now. Your meeting. This is more important. Go home, Grace. Now. She practically ran the rest of the way. Inside the apartment, she locked the door and stood in the living room, her heart pounding. Who would threaten a child? What kind of monster did that? Gabriel arrived 20 minutes later with 2 other men. One was Richard Chin, his business partner. The other was someone Grace had never seen, a tall man with gray hair and cold eyes. Grace, this is Thomas Reed. He handles security for my company. Thomas shook her hand. Tell me exactly what the caller said. Every word you can remember. Grace repeated the conversation as precisely as she could. Thomas typed notes on his phone, his expression never changing. We'll trace the number, he said when she finished. But my guess is it was a burner phone. Whoever this is, they're smart enough not to leave an obvious trail. Who would do this? Grace asked. Gabriel and Richard exchanged a look. Finally, Gabriel said, I have a rival. Vincent Torres. He's been trying to buy out my company for years and I've refused every offer. Recently he's gotten more aggressive. Hostile takeover attempts. Spreading rumors. Trying to tank our stock price. You think he would threaten a child? I think he would do anything to win. He's ruthless. Then what do? We increase security, Thomas said. I'll have people watching the apartment, the school, anywhere you and Sophia go. You won't see them, but they'll be there. I don't want Sophia scared, Grace said. She won't even know. My people are professionals. Gabriel pulled Grace aside while Thomas and Richard talked logistics. I'm so sorry. I never thought. I should have warned you. Should have protected you better. This isn't your fault. Yes, it is. You're in danger because of me. Sophia is in danger because of me. Stop. We'll figure this out. Together. That's what you said, right? We don't give up. We fight. Gabriel hugged her tightly. I love you. And I swear to you I will keep you both safe. Over the next few days their lives changed. Grace couldn't see the security people, but she knew they were there. A car followed her whenever she left the building. When she picked up Sophia from school, she noticed a woman in a blue jacket always nearby. The apartment building suddenly had new doormen she didn't recognize, men with military bearing who checked everyone who entered. Gabriel barely slept. He worked around the clock, trying to find evidence against Vincent Torres that would stand up in court. He met with lawyers, with Richard, with Thomas. He came home exhausted every night, but he always made time to kiss Sophia goodnight and to hold Grace. I hate this, she said one evening after Sophia was asleep. They sat on the couch, Grace curled against Gabriel's side. I hate that we have to be afraid. It won't last forever. Vincent will make a mistake. They always do. What if he doesn't? What if he actually tries something? Then my people will stop him. Grace, I have the best security team in the city. Nothing is going to happen to you or Sophia. How can you be so sure? Because I won't allow anything else. You two are my world. I will protect you with everything I have. Grace wanted to believe him. But the fear sat in her stomach like a stone. Every time her phone rang, she jumped. Every time someone walked too close to her on the street, she tensed. This wasn't how she wanted to live. This wasn't the life she had imagined when she agreed to be with Gabriel. But then she would look at Sophia, sweet Sophia who called her Mama Grace and held her hand and trusted her completely. And she would know she couldn't leave. Couldn't abandon this child just because things got hard. Love meant staying. Love meant fighting. So that's what she would do. A week after the threatening phone call, Grace was at the park with Sophia when a man approached them. He was well dressed, probably in his 50s, with slick back hair and an expensive watch. Grace immediately tensed, her hand tightening on Sophia's. Grace Mitchell? The man said, smiling. Who's asking? My name is Vincent Torres. I believe Gabriel has mentioned me. Grace's blood turned to ice. She pulled Sophia closer, the little girl sensing something wrong and pressing against her leg. Stay away from us, Grace said, her voice shaking but firm. I'm not here to hurt anyone. I just want to talk. You seem like a smart woman. A reasonable woman. And I think you're making a mistake. I don't want to hear this. Gabriel Russo is not the man you think he is. He's ruthless. Cold. He destroys anyone who gets in his way. I've seen it happen to competitors, to business partners, even to friends. And now you're in his crosshairs. You and that little girl. You're the one who called me. Who threatened us. Vincent held up his hands. I never threatened anyone. I simply pointed out facts. Gabriel has enemies. Dangerous people. And by associating with him, you put yourself and Sophia at risk. But it doesn't have to be that way. What do you want? I want you to leave. Take a generous payment from me and start over somewhere else. New city, new life. You deserve better than being caught in the middle of Gabriel's war. Grace stared at him. You think I would abandon Sophia? That I would take money to leave a child? I think you're a survivor. And survivors know when to walk away. Then you don't know anything about me. I'm not leaving. And if you come near us again, I'll make sure Gabriel knows. I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of man you are. Vincent's smile faded. That would be unwise. Is that a threat? It's advice. But I can see you're determined to learn the hard way. Good luck, Miss Mitchell. You're going to need it. He walked away and Grace stood there shaking. Sophia tugged on her hand. Mama Grace? Who was that man? Nobody, sweetheart. Just somebody who was confused. She pulled out her phone and called Thomas Reed immediately. He arrived at the park in under 10 minutes with 2 other security people. Grace recounted the conversation while Sophia played on the swings, oblivious. He approached you in public. That's bold, Thomas said. Also stupid. We have cameras all over this park. We got the whole thing on video. Is that enough to do something? It's a start. Combined with other evidence we're gathering, it might be enough to get law enforcement involved. Gabriel was furious when he found out. He paced the living room that evening, his face dark with anger. He approached you. He spoke to Sophia. I should have. Should have what? Grace asked gently. You can't be everywhere at once. And I'm okay. We're okay. This ends now. I don't care what it costs. I'm going to bury him. Gabriel, violence isn't the answer. I'm not talking about violence. I'm talking about using every legal tool I have to destroy his business, his reputation, everything. He went after my family. He doesn't get to walk away from that. Grace had never seen this side of Gabriel before. The cold, calculating businessman everyone whispered about. It should have scared her. But instead she felt strangely comforted. This man would protect them. He would do whatever it took. Over the next few days things moved quickly. Gabriel's lawyers filed restraining orders. Thomas's team gathered evidence of Vincent's illegal business practices, things that had nothing to do with Gabriel but would interest prosecutors. Richard worked his contacts in the business community, making sure everyone knew what Vincent had done. Threatening a child was beyond the pale, even in the cutthroat world of New York business. Vincent fought back. Stories appeared in tabloids about Gabriel's relationship with Grace, questioning whether it was appropriate for him to date his daughter's nanny. Someone leaked photos of them together, implying scandal. Grace tried to ignore it, but it was hard. Strangers recognized her on the street. Some were kind, others judgmental. I'm ruining your reputation, Grace said to Gabriel one night. I don't care about my reputation. I care about you. People are saying terrible things. People always say terrible things. The only opinions that matter are ours. And Sophia's. Everyone else can think whatever they want. Catherine called to check on them. Are you holding up okay? As well as can be expected, Grace said. Gabriel is handling most of it. That's my brother. He's like a bulldog when someone threatens his family. But Grace, I want you to know something. Whatever the tabloids say, whatever rumors are flying around, I'm on your side. You're good for Gabriel and Sophia. Anyone with eyes can see that. Thank you. That means a lot. And Vincent Torres is an idiot. He has no idea who he's messing with. Gabriel might seem calm on the surface, but when you threaten his family, he becomes someone else entirely. Vincent is going to regret this. Catherine was right. 2 weeks after Vincent approached Grace in the park, federal investigators raided his offices. Apparently, Thomas's team had uncovered evidence of securities fraud, tax evasion, and bribing government officials. Things that had nothing to do with Gabriel but were serious crimes nonetheless. Vincent was arrested that evening. The news showed him being led out of his building in handcuffs, his face pale and shocked. Gabriel watched the broadcast with grim satisfaction. "It's over," he said. "He won't be bothering us again." "How did you know about all his illegal activities?" Grace asked. "I didn't. But I paid people to look. When you shine a light on someone who operates in the shadows, you usually find things they'd rather keep hidden." Vincent made his fortune by cutting corners and breaking rules. It was only a matter of time before he got caught. "You sound almost sorry for him." "I'm not. He threatened my daughter. He scared the woman I love. He doesn't deserve sympathy." Grace understood. She didn't feel sorry for Vincent either. He had made his choices and now he was facing consequences. With the threat gone, life slowly returned to normal. The security team scaled back, though they didn't disappear entirely. Gabriel said they would always have some protection just to be safe. Grace didn't argue. After everything that had happened, she appreciated the extra safety. But the experience had changed something in their relationship. They had faced a real threat together and come out stronger. Grace had seen Gabriel at his most protective, most fierce. And Gabriel had seen Grace refuse to run, refuse to be intimidated, even when she was scared. They had proven to each other that they were partners in every sense of the word. One evening, about a month after Vincent's arrest, Gabriel came home with a serious expression. Grace's heart sank. She had learned to read his moods, and this one said something important was coming. "What's wrong?" "Nothing's wrong. I need to talk to you about something." They sat on the couch and Gabriel took her hands. "These past few months have been incredible. And terrifying. And transformative. And through it all you've been there. Not just for Sophia but for me. You've become the foundation of our lives." "Gabriel, where is this going?" "I'm getting to it. The thing is, I can't imagine my life without you anymore. I don't want to imagine it. And I know we've only been together a short time, but when you've lost someone the way I lost Isabel, you learn that life is precious. Time is precious. And I don't want to waste another day not being completely honest about what I want." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. Grace's breath caught. "Grace Mitchell, will you marry me?" Grace stared at the box, at the ring inside, a simple but beautiful diamond that caught the light. Her mind raced. This was fast. Really fast. They had only been together for a few months. But she thought about everything they had been through. The connection they had built. The family they had become. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I'll marry you." Gabriel's face lit up with pure joy. He slipped the ring on her finger and it fit perfectly. Then he kissed her, deep and passionate and full of promise. "I love you," he said against her lips. "I love you so much." "I love you too." They sat there, holding each other, looking at the ring on Grace's finger. It felt surreal. 6 months ago, Grace had been a struggling waitress with no family and no prospects. Now she was engaged to a billionaire, mother to a beautiful little girl, part of something bigger than herself. "When?" she asked. "When should we get married?" "Whenever you want. Tomorrow. Next year. I don't care as long as it happens. I want Sophia to be part of it. I want her to understand what's happening. We'll tell her together. And we'll make sure she knows that this doesn't change how much we love her. If anything, it makes our family more official." They told Sophia the next morning at breakfast. The little girl looked confused at first. "Daddy and Mama Grace are getting married?" "That's right, Princess. Grace is going to be my wife. And she'll be your... Well, we can figure out what you want to call her." Sophia thought about this very seriously. "Can I call you Mommy instead of Mama Grace?" Grace's eyes filled with tears. "If that's what you want, sweetheart, I would be honored." "Okay. You're my mommy now." Sophia went back to eating her pancakes as if they had just discussed the weather. But Grace and Gabriel looked at each other over her head, both of them emotional. They were really doing this. Building a family. Starting over. Choosing love. News of the engagement spread quickly. Gabriel didn't make a formal announcement, but in his world, people noticed things. The ring on Grace's finger. The way they looked at each other. Catherine called to congratulate them and immediately started planning an engagement party. Richard sent flowers. Even Mrs. Chen teared up when she heard the news. "I knew from the start," she said. "I knew you two were meant for each other." But not everyone was happy. Grace's phone started ringing with numbers she didn't recognize. Reporters wanted interviews. Magazines wanted photo shoots. Everyone wanted a piece of their story. The waitress who caught a billionaire's heart. Grace hated the way they framed it, like she had been hunting for a rich husband. Like what she and Gabriel had wasn't real. Gabriel hired a publicist to handle the media requests. Just say no to all of it, he told her. Our relationship isn't entertainment for strangers. Grace agreed, but she couldn't escape the attention entirely. People stared at her on the street. Other mothers at Sophia's preschool who had barely spoken to her before, suddenly wanted to be her friend. It was exhausting and fake, and Grace missed the simplicity of her old life. Well, not all of it. But at least then people had been genuine. 3 weeks after the engagement, Grace took Sophia to the park like usual. It was a bright afternoon and the little girl wanted to play on the swings. Grace pushed her, listening to Sophia's delighted shrieks, when she noticed a woman watching them. She looked vaguely familiar, but Grace couldn't place her. The woman approached as Sophia ran off to the slide. Grace Mitchell? Yes. I'm Jennifer Hoffman. I was Isabel Russo's best friend. Grace's stomach dropped. She had heard Isabel's friends and family talk about her at various times, but she had never met any of them. This woman looked to be in her 30s, well-dressed and polished. It's nice to meet you, Grace said carefully. Is it? I've been wanting to talk to you for weeks. But I wanted to see you with Sophia first. See if the stories were true. What stories? That you've replaced Isabel. That you've taken over her life. Grace felt a flash of anger. I haven't replaced anyone. Isabel was Sophia's mother. Nothing changes that. But you're marrying Gabriel. Wearing Isabel's ring. Grace looked down at her hand, confused. This isn't Isabel's ring. Not that one. But I saw photos of you wearing a diamond necklace. That was hers. I was with her when Gabriel gave it to her on their anniversary. Grace's mind raced. The necklace Gabriel had given her weeks ago. He hadn't said it was new. Had he given her something that belonged to his late wife? She wanted to believe it was a coincidence, but doubt crept in. I don't know what you want me to say, Grace said. I want you to understand what you're doing. Gabriel loved Isabel more than anything. She was his whole world. And now, barely a year after her death, he's engaged to the nanny? Don't you think that's strange? Grief doesn't have a timeline. No, but respect does. Isabel deserves better than being forgotten so quickly. Sophia came running back, saving Grace from having to respond. Mommy, can we get ice cream? Jennifer's eyes widened at the word mommy. Isabel would be heartbroken to hear that. Isabel would want her daughter to be happy and loved, Grace said firmly. Now if you'll excuse us, we have plans. She took Sophia's hand and walked away, her heart pounding. She knew the woman was just lashing out from grief and loyalty to her dead friend. But her words had planted seeds of doubt. Was Grace moving too fast? Was she disrespecting Isabel's memory? That evening, after Sophia was in bed, Grace asked Gabriel about the necklace. Where did it come from? The diamond one you gave me. Gabriel looked surprised by the question. I bought it for you. Why? Someone told me it was Isabel's. What? Who said that? Her friend Jennifer. She approached me at the park today. Gabriel's face darkened. What did she say to you? Grace repeated the conversation. Gabriel listened, his expression growing angrier with each word. First of all, that necklace is not Isabel's. I bought it specifically for you from a jeweler in Midtown. I have the receipt if you need proof. I don't need proof. I trust you. Second, Jennifer Hoffman has always been dramatic. She and Isabel were friends, yes, but they had a complicated relationship. Jennifer was jealous of what Isabel had. The marriage, the money, Sophia. And now she's taking out her issues on you. She thinks I'm replacing Isabel. You're not replacing anyone. You're building something new. With me. With Sophia. And anyone who can't accept that doesn't deserve to be part of our lives. Grace wanted to believe him. But the doubt lingered. That night, she lay in bed thinking about Isabel. About the woman whose life she had, in some ways, stepped into. She tried to imagine what Isabel would think of her. Would she be grateful that someone was taking care of her daughter and husband? Or would she be angry that she had been replaced? The next day, Catherine came over for lunch. She could tell something was bothering Grace. Talk to me, Catherine said. What's wrong? Grace told her about Jennifer and the accusations. Catherine listened, her face sympathetic. Jennifer is bitter, Catherine said when Grace finished. She always has been. Isabel tried to be her friend, but it was exhausting. Jennifer wanted Isabel's life, and when she couldn't have it, she made everything difficult. But what if she's right? What if I am moving too fast? Grace, look at me. You are not replacing my sister-in-law. You're becoming part of our family. Those are two different things. Isabel was wonderful and we all miss her. But she's gone. And Gabriel and Sophia are still here, and they need love and care. You're giving them that. There's nothing wrong with that. How do I know Gabriel is ready? How do I know this isn't just him trying to fill the void she left? Because I know my brother. He doesn't do anything halfway. When he loves completely. And he loves you, Grace. Not as a replacement. As yourself. Can't you see that? Grace wanted to see it. But the seed of doubt had been planted, and it was growing. Over the next week, Grace found herself pulling back slightly. Not consciously, but she was more guarded. Less open. Gabriel noticed. "What's going on?" he asked one evening. "You've been distant." "I'm just thinking." "About what?" "About us. About whether we're doing the right thing." Gabriel's face went pale. "Are you having second thoughts?" "I don't know. Maybe." "Gabriel, we've only been together for a few months. Maybe we should slow down. Wait a year or two before getting married." "A year or two?" "Grace, why? What changed?" She told him about her doubts, about feeling like she was intruding on a life that wasn't hers. Gabriel listened, and when she finished, he took her hands. "I understand you're scared. I'm too. But Grace, I'm not marrying you because I'm trying to replace Isabel. I'm marrying you because I love you. Because you make me happy. Because I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Those are completely separate from my past with Isabel. But what if you wake up one day and realize you made a mistake? That you jumped into this too fast? That's not going to happen. You can't know that." "Yes, I can. Because I've spent every day since I met you falling more in love with you. Every day, Grace. Not less. More. And I know the difference between loving someone because they're convenient and loving someone because they're essential. You're essential." Grace felt tears on her cheeks. "I'm scared." "I know. But don't let fear rob us of this. Don't let other people's opinions make you doubt what we have." He pulled her into his arms, and Grace let herself be held. She wanted to believe him. She wanted to trust that this was real and lasting. But the fear remained, a small voice in the back of her mind whispering that she didn't deserve this, that it would all fall apart. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. Grace was cleaning out a closet in the guest room, organizing things that had been shoved in there randomly, when she found a box labeled, "Isabel, Personal." She hesitated, knowing she probably shouldn't open it. But curiosity won out. Inside were journals, dozens of them. Isabel had apparently kept a diary for years. Grace picked one up, dated 2 years before Isabel's death. She flipped through pages of daily life, nothing too personal. Then she found an entry that mentioned her. Well, not her specifically. But it was about Gabriel and Sophia in the future. Isabel had written about her fears that if something happened to her, Gabriel would shut down emotionally. That he would throw himself into work and forget to live. She wrote about hoping he would find someone else someday, someone who could love Sophia the way she deserved. "I want him to be happy," Isabel had written. "Even if that means being with someone else. Especially if it means being with someone else. Gabriel deserves love. Sophia deserves a mother who can be there. If I'm not around, I hope he finds that. I hope he doesn't spend his life mourning me. I want him to live." Grace sat on the floor, reading and rereading those words. Isabel had wanted this. Had literally wished for Gabriel to move on, to find happiness again. It wasn't a betrayal. It was the opposite. That evening, Grace showed Gabriel the journal entry. He read it with tears in his eyes. "She always knew what I needed," he said quietly. "Even when she was gone, she knew." "I'm sorry I doubted us," Grace said. "Don't be sorry. You needed to work through your feelings. That's okay. As long as you know now that this is right. That we're right. I do know. I love you, Gabriel. And I want to marry you. No more doubts." He kissed her, and it felt like a promise renewed. They were going to do this. They were going to build a life together. And they had Isabel's blessing, which somehow made it feel even more right. Gabriel wanted the proposal to Sophia to be special. Not the engagement to Grace that had already happened. But he wanted to formally ask Sophia if she would accept Grace as her mother in a ceremony that felt official and meaningful. Grace thought it was sweet if a bit unnecessary. But Gabriel insisted. "She needs to know she has a choice," he said. "That we're not just telling her what's happening. We're including her in the decision." So they planned an evening. Gabriel made reservations at Milano's, the restaurant where they had first met. The same corner booth where Sophia had cried and Grace had offered comfort. It felt fitting to return there to close the circle. They dressed up. Sophia wore a red dress with white trim that made her look like a little princess. Grace wore a green dress that Gabriel had bought for her, simple but elegant. Gabriel wore a suit, looking every inch the powerful CEO. But when he looked at his daughter and his fiancée, his expression was nothing but soft. The restaurant manager recognized them immediately and led them to their booth. The same booth. Sophia bounced in her seat, excited to be at a fancy restaurant. "Why are we here, Daddy?" "Because this is where our family started. This is where I met Grace. And tonight is special." They ordered dinner, and Sophia talked non-stop about her day at preschool, about a picture she had painted, about how Jacob had shared his cookies with her at snack time. Grace and Gabriel listened, both smiling. This child had brought so much joy into their lives. After dessert arrived, 3 slices of chocolate cake, Gabriel cleared his throat. "Sophia, princess, I need to talk to you about something important." Sophia's eyes went wide. "Am I in trouble?" "No, baby. Not at all. I just want to ask you a question. Grace and I are going to get married. You know that, right?" Sophia nodded, her mouth full of cake. "Well, that means Grace is going to officially become part of our family. She'll live with us forever. She'll be there every morning when you wake up and every night when you go to bed. She'll take care of you when you're sick and celebrate with you when you're happy. And I wanted to ask you if that's okay. If you want Grace to be your new mommy." Sophia looked at Grace, her expression serious. Grace held her breath, waiting. "Will you still love my first mommy?" Sophia asked. Grace's throat tightened. "Of course. Your first mommy will always be your mommy. She loved you so much. And I'm sure she's watching over you from heaven, proud of the amazing girl you're becoming. I'm not trying to replace her. I'm just trying to love you too. And you won't go away?" "Never. I promise. I'm staying right here with you and your daddy." Sophia thought about this for a long moment. Then she climbed out of her seat and into Grace's lap, wrapping her small arms around her neck. "Then yes, I want you to be my mommy." Grace held her tight, tears streaming down her face. Gabriel reached across the table and took Grace's free hand, his own eyes wet. "Then it's official," he said. "We're a family." The restaurant staff, who had been watching discreetly, applauded. Other diners smiled at them. Even Grace, who usually hated public attention, didn't mind. This moment was too perfect to be embarrassed about. That night, after Sophia was asleep, Gabriel presented Grace with a drawing Sophia had made earlier that day. It showed 3 stick figures, one tall with dark hair, one medium with brown skin and one small. Above them, Sophia had written in her careful preschool printing, "My family." "She made this yesterday," Gabriel said. "Before tonight." She already knew. She was just waiting for us to make it official. Grace stared at the drawing, overwhelmed. "I love her so much." "I know. And she loves you. She's lucky to have you. I'm the lucky one." Gabriel kissed her forehead. "How about we're all lucky? How about we just accept that we found each other against all odds and we're making something beautiful?" "I can accept that." They set a date for the wedding. 6 months away in the early fall. Catherine immediately took charge of planning, working with Grace to make sure everything was perfect. Grace wanted something simple, but Catherine insisted on at least some elegance. "You're marrying into the Russo family," she said. "There are expectations. But we'll make sure it's still you. Still authentic." They decided to have the wedding at the Hamptons estate. Outside, overlooking the ocean with just close family and friends. Sophia would be the flower girl, of course. And Grace would wear a dress that Catherine helped her pick out, simple and beautiful and perfect. The months flew by. Grace quit her cleaning job, since she obviously didn't need it anymore. She kept busy taking care of Sophia and planning the wedding and settling into her new life. Sometimes she still couldn't believe this was real. That she, Grace Mitchell from the foster system, was about to marry Gabriel Russo and become mother to Sophia. 2 months before the wedding, Grace's former co-worker from Milano's, Jennifer, reached out. She wanted to meet for coffee. Grace agreed, curious about what she wanted. They met at a small cafe in Brooklyn. Jennifer looked the same, tired but friendly. "I heard about your engagement," Jennifer said. "It's all over the news. You and Gabriel Russo." "Yeah. It's been a lot. I bet." "Grace, I wanted to apologize. That day you quit, I said some things about how you were crazy to trust him. About how rich men only use people. And I was wrong. I can see in the photos and the interviews he's done, that he really loves you. And I'm happy for you." Grace smiled. "Thank you. That means a lot. I also wanted to say I'm sorry for my life. For how bitter I was. You were always kind to me even when I was awful. And I never appreciated it. You weren't awful. You were just tired. We all were. Maybe. But you stayed kind anyway. That's the difference between us. They talked for another hour, catching up on life. Jennifer was still waiting tables but had started taking online classes, working toward a degree. Grace encouraged her, told her she believed in her. When they parted, Jennifer hugged her tight. "You're going to be a beautiful bride," Jennifer said. "And that little girl is lucky to have you." Grace went home feeling light. She had worried that her old life and new life couldn't coexist, that she would have to choose. But maybe she didn't. Maybe she could carry the best parts of who she had been into who she was becoming. A month before the wedding, Gabriel's mother came to visit. Grace had been nervous about meeting her. Mrs. Russo was old money, sophisticated, everything Grace wasn't. But when she arrived at the apartment, she pulled Grace into a warm hug. "Finally, I get to meet the woman who saved my son and granddaughter. Thank you, dear. Thank you for bringing light back into their lives." Mrs. Russo stayed for a week and Grace grew to love her. She was kind and funny with a sharp wit and a generous heart. She told stories about Gabriel as a boy, about Isabel, about the family history. She made Grace feel like she belonged. "You're going to be wonderful for this family," Mrs. Russo said on her last evening there. "I know some people might have doubts. You come from a different world than we do. But that doesn't matter. What matters is that you love my son and my granddaughter. Everything else is just details. I do love them. More than anything. I know. I can see it in your eyes when you look at them. That's real love. Not the fairy tale kind but the everyday kind. The kind that lasts." The final month before the wedding was chaos. Dress fittings and flower selections and seating charts. Grace tried to stay calm but there was so much to do. Gabriel helped when he could, but he was also dealing with a major business acquisition that demanded his attention. Catherine picked up the slack, handling details that Grace didn't even know needed handling. A week before the wedding they had the rehearsal dinner at the Hamptons' house. Close family and friends only. Richard was there, serving as Gabriel's best man. Catherine was Grace's maid of honor. Mrs. Russo gave a toast that made everyone cry. Sophia sat on Grace's lap through the whole dinner, playing with Grace's engagement ring and chattering about how excited she was to wear her flower girl dress. "You're going to be the most beautiful bride," Sophia whispered. "And then you'll really be my mommy forever." "I'm already your mommy forever," Grace whispered back. "The wedding is just the party to celebrate it." That night, Grace couldn't sleep. She stood on the terrace of the guest room looking out at the ocean. Tomorrow her life would change completely. She would become Grace Russo. Wife. Mother. Part of a family she had helped create. It was everything she had ever wanted and nothing she had ever expected. "Can't sleep either?" Gabriel's voice came from behind her. She turned to find him standing in the doorway wearing pajama pants and a t-shirt. "I thought we weren't supposed to see each other before the wedding." "Bad luck. It's not midnight yet. We're safe for another hour." He came to stand beside her. "Are you nervous?" "Terrified. Happy. Excited. All of it." "Me too. But mostly I'm grateful. For you. For this second chance. For everything." "I love you," Grace said. "I love you too. Tomorrow I get to stand in front of everyone we care about and promise to love you forever." "And Grace?" "That's the easiest promise I'll ever make." They stood together, watching the moonlight on the water, holding hands. And Grace felt, for the first time in her entire life, completely at peace. This was where she belonged. This was home. Grace woke on her wedding day to sunshine streaming through the windows and Catherine shaking her gently. "Wake up, bride. We have a lot to do." The morning was a blur of activity. Hair and makeup artists arrived, transforming the guest room into a salon. Catherine and Mrs. Russo fussed over Grace, making sure every detail was perfect. Sophia sat in a small chair, getting her hair curled, taking the whole thing very seriously. "I have to look pretty for Mommy's wedding," she declared. The photographer captured everything, moments that would become memories. Grace in her robe, laughing with Catherine. Sophia trying on her flower crown and spinning in circles. Mrs. Russo wiping away tears as she helped Grace into her dress. The dress was simple but stunning. Ivory silk that fell in soft waves to the floor. Cap sleeves and a modest neckline. Nothing too fancy, nothing too plain. Just right. Grace looked at herself in the mirror and almost didn't recognize the woman staring back. She looked happy. She looked loved. "You're beautiful," Catherine said, her voice thick with emotion. "Gabriel is going to lose his mind when he sees you." They walked down to where the ceremony would take place. Chairs had been set up on the lawn overlooking the ocean. White flowers decorated everything. The sun was bright, the breeze perfect. It looked like something from a magazine. Guests had already started arriving. Grace recognized some faces from Gabriel's business world, others from his family. Her own guests were fewer. Jennifer from the restaurant. A few former foster siblings she had tracked down. Mrs. Patterson, the kind foster mother who had believed in her. Not many but enough. People who had shaped her, who had helped her become who she was. The music started. Sophia went first, dropping flower petals with intense concentration. Then Catherine, smiling brilliantly. And then Grace, walking alone down the aisle. She had no father to give her away, no family to hand her off. But she didn't need that. She was giving herself to this new life, this new family. And that was enough. Gabriel stood at the altar, and when he saw her, his face transformed. Pure joy, pure love. He mouthed, "You're beautiful," and Grace had to blink back tears. The ceremony was short and sweet. They exchanged traditional vows, promising to love and honor and cherish. Gabriel's voice was strong and sure. Grace's shook slightly, but she got through it. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," Gabriel pulled her close and kissed her to applause and cheers. "Mrs. Russo," he whispered against her lips. "Mr. Russo," she whispered back. The reception was on the terrace. Dinner and dancing and toast that made everyone laugh and cry. Richard gave a speech about how he had never seen Gabriel happier. Catherine talked about how Grace had brought their family back to life. Mrs. Russo toasted to love and second chances and the beautiful messiness of building a family. Sophia made her own speech, standing on a chair so everyone could see her. "I love my mommy Grace. She reads me stories and makes me pancakes and hugs me when I'm sad. And now she's married to my daddy, which means she has to stay forever and ever. And I'm very happy about that." Everyone applauded and Sophia beamed. Grace picked her up and held her tight, this little girl who had changed everything. As the evening wore on, guests danced and mingled. The sun set in brilliant colors, painting the sky orange and pink. Grace danced with Gabriel, their first dance as husband and wife, and felt like she was floating. "Happy?" Gabriel asked. "More than I ever thought possible." "Me too. This is just the beginning, Grace. We have our whole lives ahead of us." "I know. And I can't wait." Later, when most guests had left or gone inside, Grace found herself alone on the beach. She had kicked off her shoes and stood with her feet in the sand, looking out at the dark ocean. She heard footsteps behind her and turned to see Mrs. Patterson, her former foster mother. "Beautiful wedding, dear. Thank you for coming. It meant everything to have you here. I wouldn't have missed it. Grace, I want you to know how proud I am of you. You could have become bitter and hard. But you chose kindness instead. And look where it led you. I got lucky. No. You worked hard. You stayed open to love even when love had been hard to find. That's not luck. That's courage." Mrs. Patterson hugged her and Grace held on tight. This woman had shown her, even briefly, what family could look like. And now Grace had created her own family. Gabriel found her a few minutes later. "There you are. I've been looking everywhere. Just needed a moment. Taking it all in. Can I join you?" "Always." They stood together, listening to the waves. Grace thought about the journey that had brought her here. From foster care to struggling waitress to nanny to wife. It seemed impossible. But it had happened. She had happened. "What are you thinking about?" Gabriel asked. "About that day in the restaurant. When Sophia was crying and I had no idea what I was doing. I just wanted to help her." "You did help her. You helped both of us." "I know. But I'm also thinking about how easily I could have walked past. Could have minded my own business. And none of this would have happened. But you didn't walk past. That's who you are, Grace. You see people who need help and you help them. Even when it's hard. Even when it costs you something." "It didn't cost me anything. It gave me everything." Gabriel pulled her close. "We gave each other everything. That's how love works. When it's real." They walked back to the house hand in hand. Sophia was asleep on the couch in the living room, still in her flower girl dress. Gabriel carried her up to bed while Grace followed. They tucked her in together, their daughter, their little girl who had brought them together. "Good night, princess," Gabriel whispered. "Good night, sweet Sophia," Grace added. In their own room, Grace changed out of her wedding dress carefully. She would save it, maybe pass it down to Sophia someday. She put on comfortable clothes and sat on the bed, exhausted but happy. Gabriel joined her, and they lay together in the darkness, talking quietly about the day. About funny moments and touching ones. About how perfect it had been. "I have something for you," Gabriel said. He reached into the nightstand and pulled out an envelope. A wedding gift. Grace opened it. Inside were legal documents. She scanned them, confused at first. Then she understood. Gabriel had set up a college fund for her. A full scholarship essentially to any school she wanted to attend. Gabriel, this is too much. No, it's not. You told me once you wanted to finish your degree. Maybe become a teacher. This makes that possible. You can go to school while Sophia is in preschool. Or wait until she's older. Whatever you want. But the opportunity is there. Grace felt tears streaming down her face. What? Why would you do this? Because you deserve it. Because you're smart and capable and you should have the chance to pursue your dreams. Because I love you and I want you to have everything you want. She kissed him, pouring all her gratitude and love into it. Thank you. For this. For everything. For seeing me. Always, Grace. Always. They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, the sound of the ocean in the distance. And Grace dreamed of the future. Of finishing school, of teaching children, of watching Sophia grow up. Of growing old with Gabriel, facing whatever came together. Of the family they had built from broken pieces. 6 months later, Grace stood in front of a classroom for the first time. She had enrolled in an online degree program, working toward her teaching certificate. And the university had arranged for her to do observation hours at a local elementary school. She was nervous watching the teacher work with second graders, remembering what it felt like to be that age. Lost and confused and looking for someone to see her. After class, a little girl approached her. Are you going to be a teacher? I hope so, Grace said. Someday. You should. You look nice. Like someone who would listen. Grace smiled. Thank you. That's the kind of teacher I want to be. That evening, she came home to find Gabriel and Sophia in the kitchen, attempting to make dinner. Or rather, making a huge mess while trying to make dinner. Flour covered the counters. A pot had boiled over. Sophia was laughing hysterically. What happened here? Grace asked. We tried to surprise you with dinner, Gabriel said sheepishly. It didn't go well. I can see that. But we had fun, Sophia added. Daddy let me crack the eggs all by myself. Grace looked at them, her husband and her daughter, covered in flour and grinning. This was her life now. Messy and chaotic and absolutely perfect. How about we order pizza instead? She suggested. Best idea all day, Gabriel agreed. They cleaned up the kitchen together, all three of them. Sophia chattered about her day at school, about the new friend she had made, about the song they had learned. Gabriel told them about a meeting that had gone well, about an expansion his company was planning. Grace shared about her observation hours, about the little girl who had said she looked like someone who would listen. After dinner, after Sophia was in bed, Grace and Gabriel sat on the couch with coffee. It was their routine now, this quiet time at the end of the day. Time to reconnect, to talk, to just be together. I love our life, Grace said. So do I. Sometimes I still can't believe it's real. That I get to have this. Believe it? You've earned it. Every bit of it. Grace leaned against him, content. She thought about the girl she had been, the one who never had a home. And she thought about the woman she had become, the one who had built a home from nothing but hope and love. Life wasn't perfect. There were still hard days. Still moments of doubt or fear. Still challenges to face. But they faced them together as a family. And that made all the difference. What are you thinking about? Gabriel asked. About how kindness changed my life. I showed kindness to Sophia that day in the restaurant. And it led to all of this. Kindness and hope and love. Those are your superpowers. Grace laughed. I don't have superpowers. You do. You have the power to see people. To help them heal. To make them believe in second chances. If that's not a superpower, I don't know what is. Grace kissed him softly. Then we both have superpowers. Because you gave me a second chance too. You saw me when I was invisible to everyone else. I'll always see you, Grace. Always. They sat together as the city lights sparkled outside the windows. Inside, their home was warm and safe and full of love. Sophia slept peacefully in her room, dreaming whatever dreams 3-year-olds dream. And Grace and Gabriel held each other, two people who had lost everything and found it all again. This was their story. Not a fairy tale, but something better. Something real. A story about choosing love even when it's scary. About building family in unexpected places. About second chances and hope and the courage to keep going. And it was just the beginning. Years from now, Grace would tell Sophia about that day in the restaurant. About how sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change everything. About how love finds you when you're brave enough to be open to it. About how family isn't always the one you're born into, but the one you choose and build and fight for. And Sophia would understand. Because she would grow up knowing what it means to be loved completely. To be seen. To belong. And she would carry that knowledge with her, passing it on to her own children someday. But for now, in this moment, they were exactly where they needed to be. Together. A family. Home.